Welcome to Caribbean Brilliance, where we highlight and recognize the contribution of Caribbean Americans. We give them a platform to tell their story in hopes that it would inspire and empower the present and future generation. Today we have Aka Ali-Kerr. Oh my goodness. She's the director of HR for two major hotels, Hyatt Hotel in the US. And not only that, she's an author. Wait, let me tell you the name of the book, The Master Guide to Leadership Through Lens of Care. And she's a John Maxwell coach. Okay? So give it up for my Trini, because you know I'm like my Trinidadian. Hi, Aka.
Hi, Miss Francois.
In school, so forth and so on, and you
Right.
came here in 2022. So the
Yeah,
first thing I'm thinking,
yeah,
how is that adjustment being a mature, seasoned young lady from
yeah,
Trinidad and Tobago
yeah,
to
yeah,
this place called the United States of America?
yeah. Listen, Miss Francois, it has been an experience to adjust, to be honest. When I first got here, the culture for me was not normal. You know, when you're in Trinidad and you walk into a room or you walk into an elevator, you say good morning, right? Because I was brought up by my grandmother. So she always said, Aka, when you enter the space of somebody else, you have to say good morning or good afternoon. And that was not happening. So much so they would laugh at me at work and say, Aka, so you're going to say good morning every day? I said, well, yeah, every day is a good morning. And so I was able to change their behavior. We Trinidadians, we are warm and friendly. That's who we are, you know, and we genuinely want to help you. I didn't
Yes.
find that when I got to the US. It was really each man and each one for themselves. You do what you have to do. I just put on my blinders, you know, so I didn't get that warm welcome. But eventually people understood who I am because I showed up as my authentic self. And
Mm.
so they got a little warmer with me. But that has been the biggest adjustment moving from Trinidad to the US.
And within that, I'm thinking it's one thing moving, just the culture shock and the
Yeah.
difference, but
Yes.
now you're a director of HR. You know,
Yes.
this is a workspace compared to
Correct.
I'm going to school and I'm trying to make some
Mm.
friends, but
Yes.
you
Yes.
have to show up as a leader.
Yes, yes, yes. And that's a good point. So I was the director of HR at Hyatt Regency Trinidad. So when I moved to the US, I moved as a director of HR, but for hotels in the US.
Right.
The good thing about the culture of Hyatt, we try for it to be synergistic between wherever you are in the world. So if you walk into a Hyatt in Trinidad, you should get that warm and friendly feel the same way when you walk into Miami, Hyatt in Miami. So the me assimilating into the environment was easier because I worked for a multinational where the culture was intrinsic and part of who we are as um, as stewards of delivering our purpose of caring for people so they could be their best.
Mm.
So I must say, I tell people this, my transition was easier than most because I worked for Hyatt in Trinidad and I work for Hyatt in the US.
And nobody didn't say, I can't understand what you're saying.
Oh, well, I had to slow down. So I slowed down. I do. I try not to use, you know, I try to use the Queen's language,
Yes, I
you
like
know,
that.
but I still sound Trini. And that's something that I always want to keep as well, because my accent is, it's almost like a competitive advantage.
I never thought of it like that. Explain.
Correct, because it really, it differentiates me. And what you seek in an environment that's new, you don't want to be one of the same. You don't want to blend in. You want to be authentic. So when people hear my voice, they know Aka's in the room because I sound different to everyone else. So I have been intentional to speak the same way. I might slow down, but this Trini accent is here to stay.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's something I also want to think of, like you being who you are right now and the level to which you are right now. Did you
Mm.
imagine that when you were growing up in Trinidad?
Oh, listen, you kind of hit a little point right there. I grew up humble beginnings. I grew up in Belmont, St. Francois Valley Road, Belmont to be exact. Exposed to drugs and violence. But I always knew as a child that I was not going to be a product of in my environment. And I would never assume a victim mentality.
Mm.
Yes, I mean, God wasn't surprised that that's where I was born in St. Francois Valley Road. He's not surprised by anything. But what we have to do, and that's what I did, is to ensure that I don't become a product.
But
But
even thinking like that, sometimes when people grow up like that, everyone
mm,
kind of expect them to level out. And
mm,
my experience, for example, it's like, okay, well, you're going to learn home economics, you're going to learn the simple things. And, then by the time you 21, 22, you had two, three children or something, and then you build a little room next door to your
yeah,
mother's house.
I must my mother was a teacher, and she said one thing to me that resonates with me. She said, Aka, I may not be able to give you material things, but I will give you knowledge.
Mm,
And she always told me that knowledge is not power. The application of knowledge is power.
yes.
And so all the knowledge that mommy exposed me to, I applied it. And I always saw myself, I always had a vision. Because, the word of God says a lack of vision, the people perish. They perish. Lack of knowledge, lack of vision. I always had a vision. I knew that I was going to make a difference. I was going to make a mark. I know I was going to serve others. I know I was going to lead others.
But so with all that said, right, you getting to this point where you are now, I want to go back a little to why you decided to write a book on leadership. Because I know you have
Hmm.
like, what, 25 years now or something?
Yeah, 25
Okay.
years
So
experience. I
what's the reasoning behind the book?
didn't want to write the book, Miss Francois. Did not want to write the book at all. I was kicking and screaming. I said, I am not writing a book. People are too mean. When I go onto Amazon and I see people's reviews, I'm like, oh my gosh, how horrible. But I got this word again from my pastor, said, Aka, you have a book inside of you. I said, I'm not writing a book.
Mm-hmm.
But I smiled because I tried to be a very respectful young lady. So I smiled, but I ignored him. And then the pandemic came.
So you're the
People were,
reason for the pandemic because God wanted you to write a book.
well, you know what? If that's what it is, that's what it is. But I will tell you this. In the middle of the pandemic, it came back to me. And friends were calling me and colleagues, Aka, how are you maintaining a high engagement at Hyatt Regency Trinidad in this pandemic? What are you doing? And then I said, well, I just genuinely care for people. So I didn't have to do anything different. I really want to know, you have an ailing mother at home and this pandemic going on, what's going on with your mom? And then people were like, I never thought about it like that. Because see, because many leaders talk about care, but care is a verb. It's not a noun, it's not an adjective. So you have to show that you care. You can't only say that you care. And in the pandemic, I wrote this book because the master guide to leadership through the lens of care.
Right.
You have to use care as the thread in leadership.
I want to just touch on one or two things in the book, right?
Sure, sure.
People always talk all the time, manager, assistant manager, but then they name you all these titles as manager,
Yeah,
but then they said you should be more of a leader than
yes,
manage. So
yeah.
I'm like, that could be confusing for
It's
a
a
lot of
difference.
people.
Yeah. So you manage resources, but you lead people. You
Mm,
cannot manage people. You have to lead people. And that's where a lot of leaders get confused. They try to manage people. You can't manage an adult. You could lead an adult. So there's a difference between leadership and management. Totally different. And that is something that you need to be cognizant of as you step into leadership. Anyone. You lead people, you manage resources.
that's one of those aha moments. And I
Mhm.
guess when you're leading people, that's when you use the smile, eye contact, and
That's
connect.
right. You said that's right. That's right. And it's important, right? Everybody wants to be seen and wants to be heard. And as a leader, when I come in the morning and I say, good morning, how are you? How was your weekend? And I pause 5 minutes, that has a lasting impact. on you and how productive you are. Because now you feel seen, and everyone wants to feel seen.
Right, because the 5 minutes is because you actually want them to respond. Because sometimes people walk through life, how was your weekend, and they keep it moving. That's the reason behind the SEC, and I
So the
just want people to
SEC,
understand what SEC
okay.
means.
So this
Right?
is actually something that I learned years ago and
Mm-hmm.
have really inculcated it into who I am.
Okay.
So SEC is smile, make eye contact, and comment. So when you walk into an office, you smile, you say good morning, you make eye contact, and then you comment. How was your day? It's so nice to see you. I'm so happy that you're feeling better today. Those types of conversations, and it's just to remember SEC, smile, eye contact, and comment.
Beautiful. Such a
Mhm.
easy. And it
Yeah,
sounds so easy, but
yep,
it's amazing when if you just learning this now and
yeah,
walking in the office the next day, you realize how much people don't do that.
absolutely.
It's
They
like they're
don't.
walking and talking.
Correct. They don't
Right.
pause. Yeah. And leadership requires you to pause.
So
Yeah.
one thing, like when I was thinking, you said somewhere in the book about actually getting to know your employees, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe they have kids or if they went
Yeah.
on vacation.
Yeah.
So I have in part of my life, and I'm sure this might be some other people I'm talking to. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
people say I am too friendly, and it's not. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, how is there certain boundaries that how
Absolutely.
because I'm still,
Absolutely. That's a great question.
and how do you know what boundaries it is? Because I'm really friendly. I'll talk what so forth and so on, a lot of things, but especially when you're the leader, when does that
Yes.
end?
Yes. So there's a difference between friendly and familiar.
Mm,
Friendly, yes. Familiar, no.
got you.
Familiarity is with someone that you have a friendship with and you have a relationship with. So then I can get familiar with you. But friendly is what we do as leaders. It's really, listen, the first commandment is what? To love. And you cannot love someone and not be friendly.
Okay.
That's what it is. It's really about being friendly, being cordial, being polite. That is the differentiator between familiar, which is when the lines get blurry. That's when it's not in alignment with office protocol and etiquette. That's familiarity.
Okay,
It
well now I
also,
feel good. I've been doing a really good job.
that's
Because
right.
sometimes people is like, "Oh, you're too friendly," and I'm like, "I will
No,
fire you tomorrow, though." But
that's right. Don't take my kindness for weakness.
right. I just had like that conversation today, so I
That's
thought that's
right.
interesting.
Yeah.
I wanted to, something else in the book that you mentioned
Uh-huh.
that I want to touch on. It's explain, tell, show, and tell,
Tell,
show,
show,
do, and
do.
review. Yes.
Listen, Miss Francois, many times as leaders, we assign a task, but you don't assign the task and give clarity. So that tell, so I tell you, I show you, I review you doing it.
Hmm.
So it's cyclical. Tell, show, do, review. I say it, you do it, you repeat it, and I give you feedback because feedback is a gift, right? And the only way for you to get better is if I give you feedback. So that cycle, it's cyclical. Tell, show, do, review. Because review needs to happen to make it better. If you don't review it, then how do you get better? How do you improve? You need to review. So it's cyclical. Everything that we do.
Okay, so since I am listening to you, that's the
Ah,
next thing I want to touch on
mhm.
because we hear it time and time again. People listen to
Yeah,
respond instead of
yeah,
listening to understand. And we
yeah,
talk about active listening and how can we even
yeah.
explain the active listening, how can we get better at active listening?
So what we are doing now is active listening. How do I know?
What?
How do I know? You are responding,
Yes.
you are paraphrasing,
Mm.
you are nodding, you are acknowledging. That's active listening. Versus speaking to someone, they have a stoic face, and then mid sentence, they say, "What you say again?" You
Oh, that
wasn't
was
listening.
so Trini. What you
You
say
know,
again?
what you say again? You weren't listening. So active listening is both listening with your ears, listening with your eyes, and listening with your mouth. Listen, listen. I found I was in a church on Sunday, and my pastor said something that I was like, what? Do you know that listen and silent has the same letters but means a different thing because of the order?
Never thought of that. Yes.
Because to listen, you have to be silent. And if we understand the importance, and we have two ears and one mouth, but yet we speak more than we listen.
All the time.
So just thinking about that, two words, same letters, but in a different order means a totally different thing.
Isn't it amazing how certain things you hear all the time, but I guess it's like when you fully listen, you're
Yeah,
like, you get the aha moment
yeah,
and that makes sense. And then you always reflect on certain things. You're like, huh, I should have,
yeah,
that makes sense. Interesting. Okay, so I wanted for viewers who may not know, right? Because I've heard of this. I'm part of Toastmasters. It's called
yeah,
the sandwich method, right?
yeah,
And I
yeah.
want you to tell us when to use the sandwich method and then
Okay.
explain the sandwich method.
Absolutely. I use the sandwich approach for everything. Even if I have to terminate someone, hold someone accountable, give someone feedback, I always use the sandwich approach. So, what is that? A sandwich normally has a slice of bread at the top and a slice at the bottom, and something in the middle, whether it's meat or cheese or tomatoes. So the sandwich approach says you always start on a high, which is the bread, the top slice of your sandwich. You welcome the person. So, for example, if I had to give you feedback on something, I would not start with feedback. I would say, Miss Francois, it's so nice to see you today. I really think that you're doing an amazing job. I would love to give you feedback as to how you could step into your full potential. How does that sound?
That sounds beautiful.
And then I then give you the meat. I would like to recommend, or have you ever considered doing this, this, and this? Then we have a conversation. And then when I end the conversation, I say, Miss Francois, I know you're going to be amazing. I have all confidence in you that you are going to positively impact so many lives. And that's the closing of the sandwich. So you open with the bread, the meat is the constructive feedback, and you end on a high, the other slice of the bread. And that,
When you someone hear you even explain that,
yeah,
think about it for a second. Someone is listening, or someone younger, someone in high school, they're like, oh my God.
yeah,
Like just her explaining that she's on
yeah,
such a high level, I don't think
mm,
I could ever get there. Like, how much
yeah,
school do I have to go to? How much books do I have to read to get
mm,
to that level of knowledge? Because
mm,
you say things with such ease, like it's just right there. So, what would you tell someone if they wanted to follow in your footsteps at the level of where you are now, in just the way you speak, the way you articulate things, the
mm,
you being the director of HR, those
yeah.
paths, that path?
I would say one, always seek knowledge, always seek to be better, always learn, always grow, always improve. And don't be afraid to put your hand up and say, could you explain that to me? I need a clarification on that. I have learned by asking questions. I have learned by failing. I have learned by getting mentors and coaches who saw my potential and gave me direction. So know that you have the potential, everyone listening to me, to be the best version of yourself. But it doesn't take effort alone, it takes vision, it takes consistency, it takes resilience, because the road to success is going to be filled with failure.
And with all that, you see how I mentioned, yeah, like the younger people coming up, the
Yeah,
teenagers, going to college, all these different things. So even with that in the workplace, is the big thing now is all these different generations in the work, from the
yes,
Gen Z, the Gen
yes,
X, the
yes.
millennials. And
Millennials.
one thing you discuss in the workplace, like what is one thing a leader should understand just about a Gen X about a millennial, and about a Gen Z?
I will tell you it in this way, and I always explain it when I do training. Leadership is not a brush, it's a stroke. You have to meet a millennial at their point of need. You have to meet a Gen Z at their point of need. You have to meet a baby boomer at their point of need. Many times, leaders go into organizations and they treat everyone the same. You can't. You cannot. Leadership requires agility. And if you cannot be agile and flexible, the way that you lead others, you will not be successful. A millennial is going to ask you why 16 times. If why irritates you, then you're going to think that millennial is disrespectful. Yeah. He or she is not. It's just that is their manner, that's their disposition. Versus a Gen X, you will ask a Gen X to do something and they will comply.
Exactly.
They don't ask why, because you're the boss.
You told me.
But that is not leadership in its entirety. Leadership requires flexibility. And as we lead multi-generational workforces, you cannot have a leadership approach that is one way and mono-focused. Because the team that you lead is not mono. They are so different, they're so diverse. So leaders have to be flexible.
So then, is it fair to say not everyone could be a leader?
Absolutely. 100%.
But
100%.
if someone wants to be a leader, it's something that they can learn.
Absolutely. 100%. You see, leadership, a lot of organizations do something that puts them into a predicament. You have a good server and you promote them to be a F&B manager. But a good server is not a good manager. The competencies required to serve others is different to delegating to someone else. We promote people into incompetence, and then we want to know why they're not effective leaders. Leadership is a skill. The first time you drove, Miss Francois, were you good on Ryson Road or wherever you drove first?
I was very scared. I had to have the windows up, the radio off, and
Listen, and only as you drove more, you got feedback, you passed an exam, were you able to then drive? Why do we think that today you are a line level staff and tomorrow you are a leader and there's no exam? There's no training? There is nothing. Would you do that, putting someone in a car and let them drive?
Right.
You wouldn't do that. So why do we do this with such a critical role? These people steward other people. Mm-hmm. They have an impact on their mental health, their physical health, and you don't train them and equip them. And then you want to know why they're so poor at leading others? Because you didn't train them. And leadership is a skill. It's a skill that you have to learn. You have to get mentorship. You have to be intentional to open your mind, to be able to receive information so that you steward the people that you have the honor to lead.
Wow. Well said. No, I know I don't want to be a leader anymore because this song's exhausting.
Listen, it's not to be faint at heart. I tell you, the higher you go in an organization, the more responsibility and the more accountability.
Yes, 100%. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to ask this from a point of view as a child growing up in Trinidad right now, looking at you. And what is one or two things or something you would share to them to make them believe in themselves, to say things are achievable, whatever your vision or goal for yourself? Because you got to remember, Trinidad is this little tiny island. I myself never saw myself going on a plane. I didn't get on a plane until way later in life. You know, so sometimes you can't even see it because not your family has done it.
Yes. I would say do it scared, but do it anyway. It's not
running in the middle of the road, figure it
out. Listen. I am a walking, living testament to anyone listening right now to the sound of my voice that you could do all things. All things. Who would have thought this little girl grew up in Belmont, drugs, violence, would have gotten a tennis scholarship to go to the US to do their first degree.
Wow.
Then getting back to the US to work for a multinational organization with over 280,000 employees throughout the world. Listen, I want to tell you, if you believe it, you could achieve it. And if you find an obstacle, go around it, go above it, or go through it. But do not allow that obstacle to keep you from your purpose, because your light is too bright to be dimmed by society, by a country. No one should dim your light.
Well, if that is not a perfect ending to our episode. So that's a lot. Like I feel like you're talking to me and you look like you were talking to someone. So you never know who's going to watch this, and you will be talking to someone that's going through something at that particular time.
Yeah.
So with that being said, tell people like where they can reach out to you, your social media website. This is your time to
Absolutely.
shine.
Absolutely. So I have a series. I do series, multiple series, just to pour into people. That's my community service, pouring into people. So going to my YouTube channel, The Caring Leader, you could go there and you could see all the videos that I have done over the last few years that would really pour into you. That is free of charge. And then you could also connect with me on LinkedIn, Aka Ali-Kerr. You could also connect with me on Instagram. That's Aka Ali 45 if you want to connect with me there. But definitely connect with me. I am open, especially if you're from Trinidad. You have a place in my heart, and Tobago, by the way. Just reach out to me. I feel, Miss Francois, that we could all win.
Yeah,
I've
yes.
never had the mentality of I should be the only one. I want company at the top.
Beautiful. And I'll
Yeah.
give you some company. Well, that said, thank you so much, Aka Ali-Kerr, for being a guest on Caribbean Brilliance. As always, you all could check me out on all relevant social media. Once you check out my website at www.missfrancois.com, everything will be connected. So, with that said, have an amazing life until we lime again. Bye, guys.